Probably the worst part about publishing is getting rejected. Nobody likes to get rejected, but today we're going to talk about how to get published even after repeated rejections.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Amante. I'm a women's fiction author, and I'm here on Fridays to give you some writing tips. When I started writing a long time ago, I didn't really have publication as my goal. I just really wanted to see if I could write a story. So I read lots of novels. I decided that what I really enjoyed reading were romances and women's fiction type novels. And so those are the type of stories that maybe I could write. So that was my first goal, is just to see if I could write. And so I did for many years. I just wrote and my spare time. So I was teaching elementary school at the time, and then I would come home and I would write. And then when I was on vacation, or what they called off track, right? So I worked for 3 months, and then I had 1 month off, and then worked for 3 months, had 1 month off. And so during that 1 month when I had off, I would edit the entire, try to write it through the 3 months that I was teaching, and I had that 1 month off to get it finished. But I didn't have the goal of publication. And then my husband at one point said, well, what are you going to do with all those stories that you write? Are you ever going to try to get them published? And I thought, well, I am kind of goal oriented, and it does motivate me to have a goal. And I thought, well, why not? Why not try to get the book published? And then that's when my journey began of trying to get the book actually into the market, right? And the first thing I had to do before I could do that was actually learn how to do that. Like, what is it that, how do you get a book from manuscript to a publisher, to an agent? How do you actually get a book published? So my very kind husband bought 3 courses for me that year for my birthday, and one of them was on how to publish. And what I learned was that publishing is a business, right? You have a product that you are hoping to sell to a publisher who is then going to package it up and give it a cover, do all those things, and then put it out in the marketplace to try to sell it. But what I did learn is, once I took the class, I understood how to contact publishers, I understood how to get an agent, I learned all the important how-to parts. I realized that even if you write an amazing book, even if you have a really good product, it doesn't mean that the book is actually going to get published. It's a very difficult, complicated journey, and the publisher has to need the product that you have. So they need to like your story. They need to have a place for it. So they need to have a slot for it where they could say, okay, yes, a book is going to be released next February, right? So it is it's more complicated than just writing a book and sending it to a publisher. And so one of the things that happens a lot is that authors get rejected, and they get rejected for many reasons. Like I mentioned, right? They might just not, it might be a good book, but they might just not have a slot for it. Or they might have published something very similar to your book just recently, and so they don't really want to do the same. They don't want to do it again, right? They don't want to release the same type of billionaire, hero story, because they just had one like that. And so, or they have one scheduled very close to the slot that they have open, and so they can't have another one that's similar. Or it could be just that editor, that agent doesn't like your type, doesn't like that type of story. So it could be a very well told story, but they just don't like that type of story. Maybe it has a sad ending, and they don't like books with sad endings. Maybe it has a baby. They don't like books with babies in them, right? So there are many reasons why we might get rejected. The point is, you probably will get rejected. And it's a painful process, but if you are determined to get your book published by a traditional publisher, so these days we can always self-publish, and this is what I am currently doing. But if your goal is to get traditionally published with a publisher so that you don't have to do all the work of a self-publisher, then you probably will have to go through that rejection game. But again, All authors do it, and eventually, if you stick with it and you keep trying, you will probably, most likely, get published. So some authors say, well, how long does this rejection period last? Like, how long am I going to have to keep sending my manuscript out before somebody actually takes it, right? And says, okay, I'm going to publish this. Well, I wish I had like this really magical number, right? You don't have to go through this for 6 months. No, there is no magic number. Some people only get rejected for, a short period of time, and then an editor or an agent will show some interest. Some people go years, right? We're sending that book out, so that book number one, let's say they send it out multiple times to every publisher that is out there. It gets rejected 50 times, 100 times, 150 times over the next 3 years, and then the author maybe says, okay, well, maybe this book just isn't going to work. I'm going to write another book, and then book number two goes through a period of rejection as well. So it could be multiple years, but hopefully it doesn't discourage you. When you think of people that are entering any kind of job, right? So they want to get a career as, I don't know, an accountant, right? What do? They actually go to college for 4 years minimum, right? They have maybe some internships. They have some practice by working, maybe part-time somewhere. It takes a long time to be successful at anything. So writing is no different. It's a career that you are entering, and sometimes you have that rejection period where you're learning. You're hopefully improving each time, and you're getting better, right? You're getting better each time that you sent out a manuscript, or each time you get a rejection, and you fix that, and then you move on to a better, a better version of that story. But it takes a while. So don't be discouraged, even if it takes years of rejections. It's killer. It hurts it hurts your soul, and it hurts your ego. But you have to keep going if you're really serious about getting your book published by a traditional publisher. So what do you do during this whole time where things are getting, your manuscripts are getting rejected, right? What do you do? Well, first thing is you get better. You really have to focus on getting better, on doing a good job at improving your skills and fixing whatever the reason is that the book is getting rejected. If it's getting rejected because it just happens to be the wrong book for the wrong editor, or the wrong book for the wrong agent, well, then there's nothing you can do. But if you've sent your book out, you've sent your manuscript out to 50 different publishers, and they are all rejecting it for whatever reason. Maybe some of them will tell you, some of them won't. But if they do tell you, this is your opportunity to get better, to fix whatever it is that they're saying. So maybe one person won't like it for a certain, personal reason. But if people are saying the tone is just not right, or the characters are not believable, well, if more than one person says that, that's something to pay attention to, because that's probably something that you need to fix. It's something that you need to work on, so that you're not sending out the manuscript with the same problem over and over again, right? You want to get better each time. And how do you get better? Well, you go to conferences, right? You learn about that, take a course, go to a workshop on characterization if that happens to be your problem. Read books on how to improve characterization if that happens to be your problem, whatever it is, right? So there are books on everything. There are books on how to fix every problem that you might have with writing. So there are no lack of books. So definitely, pick up some books, read them, borrow them from the library if you can't afford to buy a bunch of them, or you just don't want a bunch of them. But learn, right? Learn at conferences, learn from books, watch videos on how to improve your writing. Videos a lot of times aren't going to give you the specifics though, right? Like, do this, where books will. So, videos are nice for encouragement. Videos are nice for how to do a few things. But then when you really, really want to get to the details, I do suggest like books, workshops, hiring a writing coach if you can afford that, right? Have them look at your work and say, this is what you should change. Make some writing friends, because writing friends can also do the same thing. They can look at your work and say, well, I can see where, the characterization is weak here. I can see where this problem, where you have a problem. So you can get that feedback from friends. So this whole time, what you're trying to do is you're just trying to improve your manuscript so that the next time it goes out, it's a better version. Pausing for a second to let you know about a couple of courses that I've created. If you're a beginning writer and you want some help with your book, I just want to let you know that I do have
basic course on how to write, and I'm going to post it below. And if you're not a beginning writer, but you are more established and you're ready to publish your work, you have your novel written, I also have a publishing course, and I will also post it below, so take a look at it. Maybe they'll be just what you're looking for. All right, let's go back to the video now. Okay, the next thing is, if you really are lucky to get some feedback from editors, from agents, when you send your manuscript out, consider that feedback. Really look at it and say, what is it that they're saying? Don't be offended. It's not their job really to offend the people that they want to buy books from. It's not that they're trying to be mean. It's not that they're trying to hurt your feelings. It's just that for whatever reason, the book is just not ready for them, right? It's not ready for that market. So listen to what they say. If they do say it, I've gotten no feedback, and I've gotten some feedback that has either gone to me or it's gone to my agent, and so my agent will tell me, well, this editor said this. This is the reason that they don't want it. This is the problem that they see. So that's always helpful, because it's like it gives you a little bit of time to sit there and really consider what those comments are and think about, well, do they have a point? Do I agree? If let's just say that I do agree, or maybe I don't agree, but I want to see it through their point of view, because they are an editor. They see books all the time. They know what the market, they know what's selling. And so it really is smart of me to consider that feedback. So consider it without any ego or any, to just look at it from just the perspective of, I'm going to use their information, their feedback to improve, and then maybe they will even buy my book later, right? If I change the things that they don't like. The next thing is just to keep trying, right? So maybe that book will sell. Maybe it's your first book and it will sell, but maybe it won't, okay? Maybe that's just the book that you learned with, and that's okay. Like I said, I wrote many stories before I finally ended up selling mine. I don't even remember how many, 4 or 5 books. The book that I actually sold, that was my first book with a publisher, was definitely not the first book that I wrote, and it wasn't the second book that I wrote, and it wasn't the third book, okay? So keep trying. Remember why you want to write to begin with. So a lot of times we get so focused on publication, we get so focused on getting the book out there, that we forget that we really are writing because we love to tell stories, that we're writing because we want to get books out to readers eventually, right? So just enjoy the process. If it's not that story, write another story. Keep writing stories, learn from the previous one, and write a new and improved story, so that that book maybe can be the book that sells, or that'll be the book that gets picked up by an agent and a publisher. So what I'm saying here is move on to a new project. Okay, so that's another step in not feeling so bad about being rejected. It's move on to another project. When you move on to another project, you're not so tied, right, to selling the one that keeps getting rejected. The rejection still stings, so when it comes in, yeah, okay, I got rejected again, I'm going to send it out again. But while you are resending that first story out, make sure that you do start a new story. It helps you focus on storytelling. It helps you focus on a new story, and it's not, you don't have like all your hope on just one story. If you're going to be a writer, you're going to write more than one story. So get started, right? Write the second story, send that first book out, write the second story, then send that second book out, keep sending that first book out if you want to, write the third story. So you're going to want a lot of stories, and you never know. Some people sell their third or fourth or fifth story. Then, because it does so well, the editor says, well, do you have something else? And maybe you can revive one of the older stories and say, well, as a matter of fact, I do have another story that you might be interested in, and then see what they say. Sometimes stories that get rejected, when you're a brand new writer, don't get rejected when you already have a track record. So keep writing new stories, and then don't worry about the ones that are not doing well. You may be able to revive them in the future, or you may just be able to put them aside and say, no, those were my practice stories. I really wouldn't even want somebody to see them at this point. But keep writing new stories. Lastly, if all else fails, and I'm talking about years, you've worked on trying to get your stories published for years, they're good,
you have no idea why they're not getting published. It could be just, there's just too many books out there. There's too many books that are getting that are going out to traditional publishers. There's just so many that they can publish. You just haven't had the luck of someone picking it up, of someone noticing it. Then consider self-publishing. It is more work. I've talked about this before. It's a lot of work to do it all yourself, but there are huge advantages to self-publishing. You do have all the control over your work. You have control over the marketing. You have control over your cover, and you have control about when the book is released. I do recommend that you get it professionally edited, so it's not, you want to put out a good product. So if you're going to do it yourself, that's fine, but make sure that you have great editing, that you have a great cover, because you are competing against traditional publishers who, let's face it, have more money for publicity. They have more, they're able to contact some of their other authors to get reviews and to get quotes that you as a brand new author may not be able to do, may have a hard time doing. And so therefore making it a little harder to sell your own book. But don't discount self-publishing. It is not as difficult as it seems. It is actually a lot of fun. You get to learn a lot about the publishing industry and how to get books out into the market. You get to learn a lot about promotion and marketing as well. So if all else fails, you get tired of the rejection, consider self-publishing. So my last words on becoming a published author is that there is no secret. It is hard work and it is persistence. In fact, when my very first novel came out, it was a short novel called Conquest. It was a romance novel, and my first publisher, and I was actually on a little book tour on my way to a conference in Houston. So I was going to speak on a panel, and I was very excited. So this is my first. I'm a brand new author. I get to speak. I get to talk about my book. I get to meet all the other writers from the same romance writing line. So it was very exciting. Well, on my way to Houston, I get a call that my editor was actually let go. So I thought, well, what? So here I am with my new book out. In fact, the next one getting ready to be released. So because it takes a couple of years really from beginning to actual when your book comes out, and it takes a long time. So my second one was about to come out. My first one had just come out, and now I don't have an editor. So it was disappointing. When I got to the conference, a lot of the writers that were there from that publisher were, we were all talking, going, well, what are we going to do now? We don't have an editor. What's going to happen with the stories that we're writing and that are supposed to be released? And are they going to continue with the romance line? At that point, they still were. So that was good, but shortly after, they actually did cancel the line as well. So it was a crazy time. But one of the authors that was writing for that romance line that had been writing for a while, she said, there's one way to be successful as an author, and that is to keep writing and never give up. And I thought, even to this day, that is the best advice that I heard. If you want to be successful, keep writing and don't give up. Those are the people that succeed. If you let disappointment, rejection, closed lines, editors that leave, agents that leave, if you let all those things that happen all the time, it's just part of the business. If you let it disappoint you, discourage you, well, that's when you don't get published. That's when the dream is over. So if you're serious about becoming a published author, then just don't give up. Keep working on it. And like I said, if it comes down to it and you cannot find a traditional publisher, consider self-publishing. Learn how to do it yourself and get your book published. Thank you for being here with me today. I hope you will come back next Friday for my next writing tip. And if this video was helpful for you, please hit the like button, hit the share button, and again, come back next Friday. Subscribe to the channel so you'll know that I have a new video out, and come back and see me next week.